This is kind of remarkable. One thing that comes out very clearly in the January 6th indictment, it's not as clear in the Georgia indictment, is that there was a moment at which some of Trump's lawyers were coming up with ways to protect his interests in case any of these recounts or appeals actually went in his favor. In case Wisconsin or Pennsylvania or Georgia or Arizona, someone figured out that, yeah, actually, Donald Trump, you're entitled to these votes and maybe you won. And then something happened. It changed into them understanding very clearly that that was not going to happen in any state, into a scheme to get him elected, despite the fact that they knew he won. It turned into illegality. How does that work for a lawyer when you realize that advice you're giving your client is now actually going to be a crime? What happens?
Well, it depends. And there are a lot of ways that lawyers can run afoul of the law. In this case, I want to distinguish two different kinds of problems, right? It's always a problem, an ethical problem, and often a criminal problem for a lawyer to help their client commit a crime. And toward the end of this scheme that we saw play out in the 2020 election, that's really the role these lawyers were playing. But well before they got to that point, they were actively, publicly, and to courts lying. And even if it's not a crime for somebody who's not a lawyer to tell a lie, for lawyers, lying to a court, lying to anybody in the course of a pending litigation of any kind, right, is a violation of their professional ethical responsibilities. And that's why you're seeing these cases against lawyers rightly proceed on two tracks in really exceptional cases. And some of them are here, right? You have lawyers implicated in actual criminal wrongdoing. But the problem for the profession and the problem for the rule of law and democracy starts well before that. It starts when lawyers violate their ethics obligations, some of which are complicated, others of which are don't lie to the courts. And that's where this started here.
And some of these are all very serious charges in both the indictments. But the one that always stands out to me is Jeffrey Clark. This was not just a lawyer, but an employee of the Department of Justice who attempted, if one wants to say this isn't a coup or wasn't an attempted coup, you just have to look at what Jeffrey Clark was doing. He went so far as to go to his boss, the acting attorney general, and say, I'm going to be your new boss because you won't do what Donald Trump wants to do illegally. He didn't use that word. So I'm just going to be your new boss. And toward the end of it, on the night of January 6th, you had Trump attorneys saying, hey, how about we just violate the Electoral Count Act one more time to buy us some more time? These were actual crimes. These are not things that were in pursuit of the conspiracy, as is said in the Georgia indictment so many times. These were actual things that lawyers and government employees were doing against the will of the people to possibly overthrow an election.
And here, the stakes, right, couldn't possibly be higher for the reasons you say. It's remarkable when you think about it, that lawyers have as much influence as they do in the executive branch with the president or anybody else, right? The president has an enormous amount of power. Why does he even bother talking to a lawyer at all? And the answer is, even for a president like Donald Trump, at some level, they think people care about the law, and they do. So lawyers have and are in a position of extraordinary influence. They can, and in the course of the 2020 election, some of them did play an incredibly important role in checking the president's worst impulses to overturn the election. But for the same reason, the same things that give them so much power to check the president makes them incredibly powerful if they decide what they want to do is facilitate, make it easier for a would-be authoritarian to take power. And that's what happened here.